Have you ever wondered why you can read a room faster than everyone else? Why chaos makes you focused? And why rest sometimes feels harder than stress? What if those traits are not random? What if the parts of you people call too sensitive, too intense, or too guarded were actually built by a nervous system that had to grow up too fast? Psychology suggests that trauma does not only leave damage, sometimes it creates a hidden form of intelligence, one shaped by survival, emotional pattern recognition, and constant adaptation. And if that describes you, then these signs may explain why you think, feel, and move through life differently from most people. 1. You read emotional tension almost instantly. You walk into a room, and before anyone speaks, you can feel that something is off. Maybe it is a pause, a shift in tone, a face that looks calm, but not quite. Most people miss these things. You do not. That is often what happens when the brain has spent years learning that subtle emotional signals matter. You became observant because, at one point in your life, observation was protection. 2. You notice what people feel before they admit it. Someone says, "I'm fine," but something in you knows they are not. You hear strain in their voice. You feel heaviness behind their words. You catch pain that other people overlook. This kind of sensitivity often develops in people who had to monitor the emotions of others early in life. You became deeply attuned because your environment taught you that moods could change everything. So now, even as an adult, you sense emotional truth very quickly. 3. You become calm when things go wrong. When everything gets messy, you do not always fall apart. In fact, you often become clearer. While other people panic, you assess. You adapt. You solve. This does not mean stress is good for you. It means your nervous system became familiar with pressure early, so it learned how to function inside it. The hard truth is this: sometimes the people who look strongest in chaos only look that way because chaos feels familiar. 4. You overanalyze people, but usually for a reason. You replay conversations. You think about what people meant, not just what they said. You notice inconsistencies, hidden motives, and emotional contradictions. To others, this can look like overthinking, but often it began as a form of protection. If the people around you were unpredictable, understanding behavior became necessary. You learned to study human nature because misunderstanding it felt costly. That is why you often see layers in people that others do not even notice. 5. You are highly independent, even when you are tired. You do not naturally expect rescue. You figure things out alone. You carry your own weight. You solve quietly. People may admire that about you, but they often do not see where it came from. When support felt inconsistent in the past, self-reliance became more than a strength. It became a strategy. You learned that competence felt safer than dependence. And over time, that survival strategy turned into identity. 6. You feel everything more deeply than most people. Music affects you strongly. Injustice hits you hard. A small act of kindness can stay with you for hours. You may look composed on the outside, but internally, your emotional world is intense. This is one of the strangest parts of trauma-shaped intelligence. The same nervous system that became alert to danger often also became highly responsive to meaning, beauty, and pain. You do not just see life, you feel it. And while that sensitivity can be exhausting, it can also make you unusually empathetic, creative, and emotionally perceptive. 7. Trust does not come easily, but when it does, it is real. You are careful with people. You do not instantly believe warmth. You do not confuse attention with safety. You watch. You wait. You test for consistency. That is not weakness. It is adaptation. If your brain learned early that not everyone who seemed safe actually was, then caution makes sense. The downside is distance. The upside is depth. Because when you finally trust someone, your trust is rarely shallow. 8. Rest can feel uncomfortable in ways you cannot explain. You may want peace, but when life becomes quiet, something inside you stays alert. You sit down to rest, and your mind starts scanning. You finally get silence, and suddenly, your body feels unsettled. This is what happens when vigilance becomes familiar. For a nervous system shaped by stress, stillness can feel unfamiliar, even unsafe. That is why rest is not always automatic for you. Sometimes it is something you have to learn slowly, almost like a new language. 9. You seem mature beyond your years. People may have called you wise, serious, or different for a long time. That often happens when someone has been forced to think deeply about pain, safety, and human behavior much earlier than most people do. You may care less about superficial charm and more about honesty, less about appearances and more about emotional truth. That depth is not accidental. It is what can happen when life teaches you early that what is happening underneath matters more than what is being performed on the surface. 10. You are trying to turn pain into meaning. This may be the most important sign of all. At some point, survival is not enough anymore. You begin asking a different question. Not just, why did this happen to me? But, what can I build from it? And that is where real transformation begins. Some people turn their pain into wisdom. Some turn it into empathy. Some turn it into boundaries, purpose, art, or truth. Not because trauma was beautiful, it was not, but because the human mind has an extraordinary ability to create meaning from what once felt unbearable. So here is what matters. The traits you develop from hardship are not simply damage wearing a clever disguise. Yes, there was pain. Yes, there was cost. But there was also adaptation. Your sensitivity, your perception, your caution, your resilience, your ability to read people and respond quickly. These did not appear by accident. They were built. The question now is not whether your past shaped your mind. It did. The real question is whether you will keep using these abilities only to survive, or whether you will start using them to create a life that finally feels safe, honest, and fully your own.